Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Internet Business Blueprint podcast, simulcast on my Ustream channel at www.jamesholmes.tv. As a matter of fact, today may be one of those programs where if you are joining us on the podcast, which is found at jamesholmesradio.com, you might want to quickly log over onto my Ustream channel at jamesholmes.tv. Because if you recall being with us here last week, I talked about bringing out my old vision board. We were talking about the process of utilizing a vision board and creating a vision board. And I had made, I think, a promise on Thursday, if I remember correctly, that I would try to bring out that dusty old vision board from 1997 that I had talked about during the course of the program. And I've done that, and I want to go over that with you and just kind of validate a few things that I talked about during last week's program. So if you want to take advantage of being able to actually see what it is I'm talking about, just go ahead and head on over to jamesholmes.tv and you'll be able to see that as well. What we've been talking about over this last week is the 11 forgotten laws. And basically what happened is I began to study this work by Bob Proctor and Mary Morrissey, where they really are taking Raymond Hollywell's Working with the Law book and going through the 11 specific laws that Hollywell talks about. And using that book as their guide, they really deliver a very insightful series of lessons that's available in a 11 disc CD set with a number of bonuses, including Raymond Hollywell's book itself. Now, one of the things that I had said last week on a couple of occasions, that if you want to actually purchase this actual set of trainings by Bob Proctor and Mary Morrissey, that if you go to my blog at www.askjamesholmes.com, that you'll see at the bottom of each of the blog posts that summarize this series of 11 lessons along with the video recording from my Ustream channel, that you can actually click on a link and acquire that course for digital download at a 66% discount off of the cost of buying the physical course itself as a physical product. On that same link, you can purchase the physical product if you'd like, and also receive a number of bonuses in terms of additional training material that deal with the law of attraction and mindset training and so forth. So again, just go back to my blog at www.askjamesholmes.com, and at the bottom of each and every blog post summary from this series of programs, and they all start out with working with the law of, and it goes through each of the 11 laws. At the bottom of those posts, you'll see a link that just says the Bob Proctor, Mary Morrissey, the 11 Forgotten Laws special is what you want. Click on that, and it'll take you right to the order page, and you can get that. Pay for it with a credit card right online and download it immediately and have the actual lessons that I'm drawing much of this material from. I was getting so much from studying this myself that I decided a couple of weeks ago that I wanted to share it with all of you, and that's why we've been going through this series of lessons. So today we come to lesson number 8, which is the law of forgiveness. And I'm going to summarize where we've come to so far in this process. But before I do that, I'm going to share with you this vision board, as I promised I would do last week. And it's kind of neat. The story is that there was a period of time back in 1997 where I was going through some challenges and really found myself at a point where I was starting over, having just basically there's no mystery involved. I was going through a divorce. It was one of those situations where I had moved out of the home that we owned together and literally had 2 chairs, 2 paintings, my clothes, and my books, and that was basically it. And so I was really starting over. And a friend of mine had attended a New Year's Day event for women, and at that event she had participated in this process of creating what I now know are vision boards. At that time I'd never heard of the concept, and this was a completely new idea to me. But I was over at her home with her husband having dinner, and she was sharing with me this incredible experience that she had of creating this vision board. and had basically said to me, you're really kind of starting over. You don't really, you're in this empty apartment. Why don't you try, going through this process? I said, okay, well, tell me more about it. And the bottom line is this. What you're doing is you're creating on a basic piece of poster board a visual representation of something that you want to manifest in your life. And in this case, it was, in January. And so I was thinking, okay, what do I want to have happen during the course of this next year as I really kind of start over again? Now, I'm going to warn you in advance that much of what you see on this board has to do with lifestyle and probably a little bit greater representation of material wealth than it might if I were to do this vision board, brand new here today and do a new board. Because again, I was starting from such a position of lack. I literally had walked away from everything that I'd accumulated for the preceding, 15 years or so. And so, material possessions are very much in my mind. But I'll just go through this with you and kind of share with you some of the things that I, had envisioned. And then I want to, most importantly, tell you about what transpired over the course of that time. Now, again, keeping in mind, the underlying thing I want you to understand is I literally had nothing. I had an empty apartment, 2 chairs, 2 pieces of art, my personal books, and my clothes. And from that, I'm going to help you understand how powerful this concept of a vision board is and what happened to me. So, if you're on the podcast, I hope you ran over and jumped onto the video because you're going to want to see this. So the first thing I'm going to do is see if I can get this positioned properly, and I'll share with you kind of what's on this board. So you might see on here, and I'm going to get way over here out of the way and see if I can position this in such a way that the board itself becomes the primary thing in the screen, and I'll kind of circle my way around it and be able to read it from the other side. So you'll see on here that I had, number one, made a proclamation here at the very top that the year 1997, I had the words that I cut out of a magazine, one astonishing year. So although I was in a position where, the odds were stacked against me having an astonishing year in 1997, given what was going on, but I had determined that I was going to really make this a tremendous year, regardless of my present circumstances. And so the first lesson there is, I want you to make decisions, make affirmations, make goals, and set objectives based on what you want, not on necessarily where you are at the moment. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to really invest myself into really developing my mind. I wanted to learn on purpose, and so I have on here the words, the thinking man's life. So at the very top, upper left-hand corner, the words cut out of a magazine, 2 different, headlines or something that I pieced together that say the thinking man's life, which is what I wanted to begin living. And then again, like I said, one astonishing year in the year 1997, if you can see it there at the very top of the board. And then on the other corner, upper right-hand corner, I had it's time. Just the words that I found out of a magazine. And they, as I went through just a big stack of magazines to find the images and the things I was going to put on this board, that was one thing that it just was time. It was time for me. I made a hard decision, and it was time for me to make something happen. My faith was very important to me, always has been, but even was more so during a difficult time, which is true for many of us. And as you see here, I've got the word Christian, and then I found in a magazine these great, powerful words. See how great your God can be. And those words just spoke to me in a very powerful way. So I added those to my vision board. I knew there were certain things I needed to get done that were immediate. And there were certain things that I wanted to get done during the course of the year that were going to be more long-term. So you'll see here where I've got the word quick fixes. So I wanted to remind myself every day as I looked at this vision board, because I hung this vision board in the interior of the closet in my bedroom. So every morning when I got up and opened the door to get dressed, I would see this visual reminder of what it was that I was going to set out to create. And so I have the words on here, quick fixes, because I knew there was going to need to be some. I have on here truth, the word truth, the word DreamWorks, the words health focus, because I really wanted to focus on just being the best I could be. I was going out and embarking on a whole new life, different than I had been living the past 11, 12 years. And I wanted to make sure that from a health perspective that I was going to keep in top condition, is the other word that's on here related to health. Family became something that I realized was very, very important. And I needed my family more, in this time than ever. And so I have on here the word family. And I have on here, see your mother. The idea that, I really am purposeful about going and seeing my parents and spending time with them. And then a passion for people, which has always been a passion of mine. Even thinking back to my mortgage and real estate business, what that was about helping people accomplish their dreams of homeownership. I wanted to start journaling. And so I put on here the art of writing as another, word reference. And it's interesting on this particular board, and I've done others since this time, but so many things that I put on here were really about words and not so much pictures. I think if you looked at my current vision board, you'll notice that it's a lot more pictures than words. But for whatever reason, these words were speaking to me. Romantic inclinations, well, maybe at some point in time. And so that was on my board. Oh, lucky man, feeling although I, was in a position where I was really stepping out and had made some, again, hard choices, that I felt very lucky to be empowered to do that and have the strength to do it. Because a lot of times people don't, make those hard decisions. And I talk in this board a reminder about the art of being unique and thinking like a giant. I'd met someone during this period of time, a guy named Todd Seidler, who wrote a great book, Think Like a Giant. And I found this in a magazine, and it spoke to me because of just a lesson that he had taught me about the power of thinking. In fact, it was one of the first lessons, as I think back on it now, that I ever had on really understanding how to think and the power of your thoughts. Of course, I needed to create a home for myself, so I've got the words show place like home, and then a photograph of a piece of nice furniture, of which is very much the type of furniture that I ended up furnishing my apartment with, as a matter of fact. And so you see there's a picture there of a really nice piece of furniture. Art was important to me, and I needed art because all my walls were bare, and so I had the word art on there. I had on here, this is really interesting, the words join us, Denver Art Museum. And one of the things that I just consider to be a miracle beyond a coincidence is in the year 1997, I became engaged in working with the Denver Art Museum as part of their marketing committee. I'm still on their board of directors and have worked with the museum actually the last, I guess it's been now 12 years. So it was a powerful thing to have these words join us, the Denver Art Museum, just because I loved art. I had no idea that I'd be working with the museum and it would become such an important part of my life over the next more than decade. It's kind of interesting in this whole business realm. I had kind of struggled a little bit. In addition to just from a relationship perspective, I was really breaking into a new field of work, and that was doing corporate sponsorships for auto racing teams. And I had spent the preceding 4 years pursuing my own driving career. I drove late model stock cars, which I think most of you guys know, in NASCAR short track series, and also raced in the American IndyCar series. And after I got into the point where I realized that I've kind of fulfilled my potential as a driver, at least I felt like that. Looking back on it, I might maybe rethink that, but at least at that point in time, it's how I felt. And so I basically hung up my helmet, stopped driving, and I started working with other teams to develop their corporate sponsorship. So you see on my board that I've got one of the primary sponsors we were working on at the time, which was Total, which is a French petroleum company. I've got a bag of money there, which was kind of like the joke was that I'm there in those teams to get the bag of money. And I had another one of my clients that I wanted to try to attract to my business, which was the High Prairie Farms Equestrian Center. And at the top, this logo is very important to me. This is the the Indy Regency Racing Eurosport team, which was my first client when I did my corporate sponsorships. And it was a full-fledged IndyCar team that previously had the driver Ari Leyendijk, and he had moved on to other things by the time I had arrived there. And the client we were working with was Jeff Andretti. And Jeff Andretti being the son of Mario Andretti, a true legend. My client was actually the team itself, and we were trying to put together a marketing package to bring Jeff back into the series after he'd been injured a couple times pretty significantly and seriously at Indianapolis on two prior occasions. We were working on getting him back into the IndyCar series. And so here I am, at the beginning of the year, 1997, not knowing what was going to come to pass, and to actually have attracted the opportunity to work with the Andretti family is a second one of many what I'll call miracles and not coincidences of what happened as a result of this vision board. You see my income goal at the time was kind of modest. I think I said on there earned $75,000. But keeping in mind, I was going into a brand new field that I really didn't know a lot about. I knew a lot about getting sponsorships because I always had my own teams sponsored, my own car sponsored, and now I was moving into an area of working with other people. So then we've got a lot of lifestyle, which I talked to you guys about, really envisioning the lifestyle you want, and to have visual images, whether it's words or logos or photographs that represent what it is that you're wanting to attract to yourself. My dream car was a Porsche. I talked about elements of style. There's a picture of a Mont Blanc pen, a Raymond wheel watch. I wanted to travel not only to other places outside of Colorado, but I wanted to spend more time in the great places in Colorado. So I've got a picture here of Vail, which is my favorite place in Colorado, actually, still is today, and at the words Aspen. Aspen is a ski resort area in Colorado, and I wanted to spend time there in 1997 as well. Now, as we get to the bottom of this vision board, I really got into what for that time, were my big, hairy, audacious goals. And I'll tell you right up front, to take the mystery out of it, that I achieved these 100%. So the first one on here is you see a photograph of an equestrian jumper. And that isn't just any old equestrian photograph. That was taken out of the program for a facility called Spruce Meadows. And Spruce Meadows every year hosts the Spruce Meadows Masters. It's an elite international world-class show jumping tournament with the top European, American, Canadian, and Mexican teams all vying for $1 million in their final day event. And I wanted to attend that particular event, and that was something I really wanted to do. This photograph right here, I'm going to show you quickly, was, I took this picture. This is a photograph of Franka Schlotach, who at the time was the German national champion on the Nations Cup Day at Spruce Meadows in 1997. An event that I attended that in January, I had no idea how I would get there or if I would get there. I put it on the board believing that it was possible. And not only did it come to pass, I actually ended up meeting a gentleman by the name of Ian Allison. And Ian Allison is the marketing director. He's the face, the television face of Spruce Meadows. He does all their color commentary. And I befriended him and actually ended up not only attending the event, but ended up being in the media center and watching the Du Maurier, the final day $1 million event from the media center, meeting and spending time with journalists from all over the world. And I also met the British show jumping team at a dinner outing, just by random, here you go, coincidence again. But what I'm trying to say is this big, hairy, audacious goal of mine came through in a huge way. You'll also see on here that I have a picture of IndyCar, if I can figure out which direction to go. Work the opposite of what you're seeing. At the bottom there is a picture of some IndyCars. And I wanted to attend at least one IndyCar race that year. And I think with my work I was doing with the Project Indy team, I believe I ended up being at, 3 races that year, including the one in Vancouver, which is my favorite place in Canada. Probably, I guess, along with Spruce Meadows, which is also up in Calgary. Those are my 2 favorite places in Canada. So you see there's a lot of lifestyle, a lot of things on there that relate to things, like I say, that now that I'm 12 years beyond this and kind of fully reestablished, my vision board may look a lot different if I were to show you the one I have today. But I thought it was kind of fun after last week's lesson to maybe share that with you, to give you a sense of what is kind of possible as you set about to create that vision board. Great things can come. This is a photograph of my dad and of a driver that I worked with for one of the teams I represented, called, his name is Jeff Neal, and we were in the American Speed Association series, and I was able to take my father with me to Indianapolis. Our team was racing there, And here's a picture of my dad and our driver, Jeff Neal, on the starting grid before the race. My dad was able to participate on the pit crew, and the sponsorship you see on this car and the paint scheme and so forth was all part of the work that I did for that team. Another way that the dream kind of gets expanded is not only in terms of the Spruce Meadows involvement, but I actually ended up with a horse of my own. And this is actually the first horse that I had, which his name is Great Scott, and I've had, I think, 3 others since him. But a lot of things when I was at the point where I was really starting over and really stepped out in disbelief. Again, I was introduced to this concept of this whole vision board idea. I didn't have any understanding of it back then, but I took the leap of faith that it would have some meaning for me, and created it as I just showed you. And I'll tell you, I didn't get the Porsche, but I think just about everything else on that board that I had listed came to pass. I certainly collected some art that year through art auctions. I furnished my apartment. I ended up, like I said, securing some clients. And I don't know if I met my $75,000 goal yet. I don't remember if I did that year or not. But I know I made an income, made a living, paid my apartment lease, and was able to enjoy some travel. I went to Vail, I think, on 2 or 3 occasions. Once for a big art show with one of my favorite artists, an international artist from Spain. And so a lot of good came out of the process of putting that stuff down on that board. Now, you may ask me the question, do I think that would have happened irregardless? If I wouldn't have gone through the exercise of creating that vision board, do I think those things would have happened anyway? I don't think they would have, honestly, because the thing that board provided me with the discipline every day of opening my closet door and seeing those visual reminders, it kept me focused on my goal. And whenever I would get discouraged because I was coming home to an empty apartment, I knew that I was working towards a grander purpose. And as some of these things started to fall into place and circumstances started to appear, opportunities, the people, the resources I needed to carry out the things that I was hoping for and dreaming about, I then became a lot more focused on those things, and they, again, manifest almost in their entirety. I still don't have that Porsche, but majority of what I had on there did come about. So I just thought it'd be fun sharing that with you, since I promised I would do so last week. So let me get into today's lesson. We only have about 8 minutes. This is going to be a quick one. It's one of the most important lessons of these 11 laws, and it's the law of forgiveness. And so often we fail to forgive. And not only do we fail to forgive ourselves, most importantly, but we fail to forgive others. And we think sometimes when we're harboring these feelings, if someone's offended us, even if it was on purpose, let's say someone did something that was malicious, on purpose, didn't cause you bodily harm, but was not a very nice thing. It could have been a competitor in a business, could have been someone that's involved in your business, could have been a family member, whatever the circumstances are. And we fail to forgive. While we are kind of toiling in that feeling of unforgiveness, when we're carrying that anger or disappointment or resentment towards that other person, most likely they're going about their lives unaffected, that they're not, in any way being burdened the way you're being burdened. So the lesson in that is that by not forgiving, you're really hurting yourself. You're not hurting the other person. It's really coming back and reflecting on you. So what I want to do is I want to read to you a definition of forgiveness that is so perfect. And it's taken from that lesson, from Bob Proctor. This happens to be Mary Morrissey's words, where at the beginning of the lesson, Bob asked her if she would define or provide her definition of forgiveness. And as I heard this the first time on the audio and then read it in the transcripts that are included in the course, it was so perfect when I thought about this lesson and what my own definition of forgiveness was. I don't think I could do a more beautiful job of expressing the feeling of forgiveness than Mary has done here by her definition. So I'm going to share that with you now, and I hope I can say it even close to as eloquently as Mary Morrissey does in the 11 Forgotten Laws training course. So this is her definition of forgiveness, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. Forgiveness is a shift in perception. And that shift in perception removes a block in me. to my awareness of love's presence or the power of all that is right. So when I'm feeling non-forgiving, what it creates in me is a block in my awareness. Forgiveness is a shift in perception that removes a block in me to my awareness of love's presence. So to not forgive, it really is not really hurting anyone other than yourself. And to not forgive yourself especially, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for struggle and for really, falling short of the potential you have or from what you want to create in your life. So let's talk a little bit about when we fail to forgive. The fact is we only hurt ourselves. That failing to forgive limits our possibilities is the second key lesson I want you to take away from this today. That forgiving yourself sets up 4 very important realities for you. You must forgive yourself for making poor decisions that you've made in the past. And I think it's easy for all of us to fall into this trap that we begin to harbor feelings of regret. We wish we would have made a different decision or series of decisions. But the reality is that there's nothing we can do about what's already been done. We can certainly take the lessons from those poor decisions. We can hope that they're no longer impacting us, and we can learn from them and move on and go forward. But the biggest lesson here, and number 1, is to forgive yourself for those decisions that you've made. Draw the lessons from them and then let them go. The second thing is forgiving yourself for opportunities that you may have squandered. I don't know if you've had the experience, I certainly have in my life, where I feel as though I've had an opportunity placed before me, and that maybe I didn't go after it with the tenacity that I should have, or the level of energy that I should have, or the commitment that I should have, or have put all the resources that I should have put behind it to really bring it about and fully experience the opportunity. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. I have experienced that. And I know the limiting feelings that sets up. So you need to forgive yourself for any opportunities that have already passed, that you've squandered, with the only real lesson that you can take from that is to be very sensitive to future opportunities and to, with all your effort, the ones that you choose to pursue, do so with 100% commitment. Number 3, forgiving yourself for anything that you feel you did wrong. So if you're harboring, skeletons in your closet, things that you feel like you've done that for some reason you should still be punished for, decisions you've made that were wrong decisions, opportunities you've squandered, as we just talked about, things that you're allowing to hold you back, where no one in your world even cares, but in the deepest recesses of your mind, whatever it is you feel is worthy of you not succeeding, that you really let that go, that you forgive yourself and let that go, and then be empowered to move forward, to make progress. And the fourth and final thing is forgiving yourself for your present results. And I've said to you last week on more than one occasion that your present results are evidence or proof of your present most dominant thoughts. And so if you look at your current results, and if they're not what you think they should be, there's a real possibility that part of it has to do with maybe some feelings of guilt that you have, or resentment about something or someone, or feelings of anguish around an opportunity that's been missed, or whatever it is that has you tripped up in thinking in a limited way. And I want to just tell you today that you need to embrace that, take from it any lessons that are of value, and then let it go, bury it, move on from it, and don't turn back to it. The applications for this in your business are, if necessary for you to do so, make a list. If you need to put it down on paper to really own it, then do that. If you don't feel it's necessary to make a list, don't go through the exercise. Decide if any of the external actions are required to really help you break through to forgiveness. So in other words, is there anyone out there that you have to go see and ask for their forgiveness? Or are these things that are just all dealt with internally? And then you want to become the embodiment of forgiveness in your life itself. And by doing this, you'll embrace and work powerfully with this particular law, and it'll be transformational for your life. So with that being said, I want to thank you for being with me today. We'll begin again tomorrow with another one of these vital lessons, the 11 Forgotten Laws. And I look forward to having you here with me again. We'll be here at 9 o'clock a.m. It's Mountain Standard Time, my local time, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Internet Business Blueprint podcast. This has been James Holmes, your host, and I want to thank you for joining me both here on the jamesholmes.com radio program as well as at James Holmes TV on Ustream. Have a blessed day.